Okay. Oh, we are live. Hello, YouTube. Thank you so much for seeing me today. Welcome to the ADHD Roundtable. This is an open roundtable discussion about ADHD to bring normalcy to neurodiversity while engaging in deep conversations and having fun. So, welcome to these beautiful humans that are here with me today. One of my favorite questions to ask ADHDers is what is your current favorite thing about your flavor of ADHD?
Hmm.
The first thing that's coming to me is as we were actually getting ready for this, my boyfriend was downstairs and I'm like prepping him, this is what I need to do with my son tonight and all of this. And he's like, it's like 6:20. Are you gonna like go prepare for this? And this was before I knew that Jess doesn't prepare for these things either. And I was like, no. And his eyes were just like so big. And I was like, I can't. Like it's so much harder for me to prep for things like this than to just do it on the fly. And so I think that that's actually, as a content creator and as a practitioner, kind of a superpower for me, that I don't need a lot of prep work. Like I don't know what I'm going to do, but when I like get in the mode of whatever I'm doing, it's just like whew, it's there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. I know it's a lot of words that I said, but
No.
what is your current favorite thing about your flavor of ADHD?
I think so. I reacted right away to having fun, that we're here to have fun. I think it's my flair or my going with the flow and just like being in attunement with others that are similar. So similar to like unprepared,
Yeah.
but
Cool.
it's like just being like present.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking something similar, like being really, really present. And also just like my favorite thing is when I get to just be a total goofball and people are accepting of that and enjoy that. Because I love being a goofball. And then when other people are enjoying it, then it's just like, oh God, yes, it's so fun.
One of my favorite things about ADHDers is the I say this often on these roundtables. So if you watched all these episodes, you're gonna hear me say the same thing again, but thank you for being here anyways. The way that ADHDers take in information is so incredible to me because I don't have ADHD and my being doesn't work the same. And so witnessing ADHDers like take in information with all of their senses at the same time, I know sometimes that can be challenging and overstimulating, but the way that it happens simultaneously, and then you're like jujitsu some shit in your brain, and then it spits out into this like beautiful solution. And I'm like, that would have taken me 6 hours to do what you just did in 30 seconds. Holy cow. It's really beautiful to witness. So cool. Um, there are so many reasons why this week has been so weird, not to mention that we were just talking about it being in the 30s in Florida right now. Like, I don't, and it's warmer where I am in Portland, Oregon. It's like 45 degrees. So with the like temperature and the political climate and the things that are happening overseas and the blah and not to mention everything that else is going on in your world right now. Um, how are you yourself staying sane? What are you doing for your ADHD beautiful self to support yourself this week? And if you're not, that's okay too. Like, just tell us about your experience of this week.
It was really rough for me because the TikTok ban was going to really, really affect me. That's where I've chosen to focus almost all of my energy as a business owner. That's where I market and connect with my clients. It's just been the most successful thing. Um, and so I didn't really like get too stressed out about it until like those last 72 hours. And it's just like every day it was like, oh, this is really happening. this is really happening. And so that was like really difficult for me. So I feel really exhausted from that. And by the time Monday rolled around, it's like I just didn't have any energy to even like interact with like anything political. And now it's going back into just hearing everyone discuss what's going on and all the decisions and the changes. It just feels very overwhelming. So for me right now, I think I'm just kind of putting up a shield because I just feel like I can't take anything else in at the moment, but I feel like I have to because very important things are happening. So I've slowed down a lot. I've been cooking a lot the last couple of days, and I bought like overnighted an Amazon board game to play with my son, and I've just kind of been like sheltering a little bit because it's a lot.
So I know a little bit about you, Jessy, and the work that you do, but when you talk about putting up a shield, what does that mean and how do you do it? Like if you were going to describe it to somebody, how does that work for you?
Yeah, so I typically enjoy and want to be around people. Like if I'm working, I'll go to a hotel downtown and just sit in the lobby because I need that buzz of other people's energy to like body double with. Or I'll go to a class. I've been really enjoying like hot Pilates lately. I've been going every single day because it just feels good. And then after kind of that roller coaster and the dump of all that adrenaline, I've just decided I canceled my classes for the week. I haven't gone yet this week. I have been cooking at home instead of going out, making coffee at home instead of going to the coffee shop, and really just focusing more inward. And just kind of putting up, I just feel of it like a shield, just kind of staying in the house or staying in the energy of like my people really close to me, and then not taking in a lot of information because I know if I start scrolling and consuming, it's just going to pile on, and I'm not in a safe enough, regulated enough place to take things well and really process it. I'm just going to get into the drama of it all.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can relate a lot. January in general has been really tough for me. It's been I get seasonal affective disorder, and so every winter, especially in January, things get really hard. And I found that exercise is like always, always, always the best way to get myself not only out of depression, but also to like regulate my nervous system and get my ADHD in control. Um, and in January, it's been really difficult for me to get my exercise because I took a trip. And when I got back from the trip, long story short, it totally messed up my sleep schedule. So I was like not able to fall asleep till like 2, 3 a.m. And then my dog's waking me up at 7 a.m. And then I'm tired and I got to get work done. And it's like, I don't want to go for a run or work out or whatever. And so it's been tough, like reacclimating to a schedule. But yeah, I've been like running and doing hot on it. I don't know if you guys have heard of on it or not, but it's like mobility, strength, uh, cardio, all the things all in one in a hot room, and you just sweat your ass off, and it's really hard, but you feel so good afterwards.
Yeah.
So
Give
that's
me
been
the
what I've
name.
been kind of doing. What's
Hot,
that?
hot on it. It's just
Yeah, yeah, hot on it. Exactly.
Yeah, there's something so good about sweating. I don't know. I've always loved hot yoga. Now I have a place I do hot Pilates, but there's just like that feeling afterwards is incredible. But I agree. I've found that moving my body is always been the most helpful thing for me. So it's interesting to hear Bill say that as well. That I think there's really something to that. And I don't feel like I've heard that a lot from my providers since I've been diagnosed. That's
Hmm.
like never been something they've said.
So I actually read in a book, it was ADHD 2.0. I forget the author's name, but he did this exercise of where he found that having people with ADHD do balance exercises actually helped with their ADHD and has something to do with like linking the two sides of the brain together better. I don't know the scientific
Yeah.
parts of it, but yeah, doing like yoga or even like balancing on a balance board and stuff like that apparently helps with it.
well,
Interesting.
that makes sense to me because the book
Yeah.
I'm also a yoga teacher, and so it's like
Mm,
I teach balance, like imagining yourself as like a flame, like a
Mm,
candle flame, because there's always this like give and take when you're balancing.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense because of the focus, right?
Hmm.
All the time you find like a dristy point or like a,
Yeah.
spot that you're staring at and you're feeling that wiggle. Makes
Hmm.
a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's probably one of the few times that we actually like can actually have to focus our brains. Like I'm thinking of all the times I
Mm.
try to like meditate or do other things. I struggle to actually focus. But when you're trying to balance and actually not fall, you really do have to. Like there's no other chance that you're gonna fall or no other
And
choice
be in your
but falling.
body and
Hmm.
like be in your body exercise, right?
Yeah.
I'm also with Jess up in Portland, and we've been having this insane sunshine the last couple days. And just like, I'm like 2 or 3 pairs of pants and my jacket, my scarf on my head because it's cold, but
Yeah.
sunny. And just walking the neighborhood
Yeah.
for me is just like
Hmm.
just looking around and just looking up at like the trees and all the branches are naked right now. So you see all the birds' nests and like little animals and stuff and
Yeah.
just
Mm,
my neighborhood cats, Like, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I've been coloring. I don't know. I picked up this habit again. I have this like mandala coloring book, and I've been doing a lot of that at night or when I'm done with work.
Mhm.
And just kind of like it's just like a subtle focus. And I'm usually like listening to music or
Mm.
I don't know, but it's just like it's so soothing. I don't
Yeah.
know.
That
That's
sounds really nice.
Hmm.
I have these great pens, like this kind that kind of look like paintbrushes, and they
Oh,
go
fine.
tall, and like it's just um again a little bit of that focus, right?
Yeah.
You're unwinding your mind from work, but like I don't want anything heavy and like
Hmm.
content, even if it's like I love TV too, but like it's just too much it's too much.
Hmm.
On Overwhelm, it's like, nah, I'm gonna color and like listen to music and
Yeah.
just
So we
let my
have like protecting energy, body movement, something creative. Those
Hmm.
are great things. And those all coincide with supporting ADHD for sure. And Jesse, I'm not surprised that providers are not telling you about body movement because unfortunately, most providers are not actually well versed in ADHD. And
Yeah.
especially if it's a general practitioner, they have to be versed in so many different things. So even
Sure.
if you have a
Right.
decent provider, they can't know deep dive into every subject.
Right.
And so, but the like, particularly for women, but sometimes for men too, like some of the hyperactivity is actually in your brain. And so doing the body movement helps release that
Mhm.
hyperactivity wherever you might have it, whether it's in your body or in your brain. It helps release that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, tell us a little bit about how you stumbled upon the fact that you have ADHD. And on here, we talk about some people get diagnosed, some people don't. Everybody's journey is their own, and there's no right or wrong answer. But how did you come about it for yourself?
I'll start because uh, I'm self-diagnosed, um, confirmed by my therapist, but I haven't gone through like the official diagnosis. And I guess I don't remember the first time I ever even heard the term ADHD, but it was definitely when I was pretty young. Um, and one of my best friends had it and was officially diagnosed, and he was on, I don't know if it was Ritalin or Adderall or whatever, but he was taking medication. And uh, I just recognized the fact that like all of the things that he does, I also do. And those things being like just being really fucking hyper, like bouncing off the walls. Especially when I was younger, I would get so excited and I would just like run around and scream and make weird noises and stuff. And which also led into this whole, and this is a totally separate conversation, but I think also really interesting for people with ADHD. This whole idea of like our hyperactivity being like too much for people, and there being a lot of like shame and guilt and like hiding that, which again, whole other conversation. But um, yeah, so that was when I first found out was when I was younger, and well, first had the inkling was when I was younger. And then as I got older, I kept learning more and more about it, and I would take these tests online, and they'd be like, "Yeah, you have it. Go take a, official diagnosis." And I just never got diagnosed because A, it's way too expensive. Like it would have been like $1,500 or something just for them to tell me that I have it. And I'm like, I don't even know that I want medication. Why am I going to pay all this money just to have somebody tell me this? Yeah. And so, yeah, recently, like in the past year, even in the last couple months, is when I really started like learning a lot about it and reading books and listening to podcasts and all that stuff. And it was just, especially like listening to other episodes of this very show, Jess, like that one you sent me, I was like, oh my God, like this is so validating. Like everybody deals with these problems that has ADHD. It's not just me, and I'm not weird. It's just part of it, you know? And so I thought that was so beautiful. And that's, yeah, there's my story.
Thank you for sharing that. It makes me so happy that the show I'm doing is making a difference and doing its job. Like, yes, you get to be
Yeah,
heard and validated and know that you're not alone. Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like I have a very similar story. I was recently I went back to school to become a professional mental health counselor, and a good friend that I first met online going to school, and I said, I think I might. He was like, you so have ADHD. And my therapist at the time, I said, I think I might. And he helped like through like very sensitive questioning, kind of help me identify like, I probably wouldn't choose to take medicine, and helped me see like the cost and like, the benefit. And he's like, you've made it this far with like learning how to work with the way your brain works. And I don't know, get a little personal too. In elementary school, I started tracing back to things I was maybe a little bit before diagnosing for these things for ADHD was a thing. And I was tested for processing disorders.
Mm.
So again, in the same vein, and that
What is a processing disorder?
that there's different ones. I actually don't know that much about. I cannot pretend to
Oh,
be a
okay. I
expert.
just haven't heard that before. I was
Yeah,
curious.
so it can be like auditory, like just things or reading a visual that you're just
Mm.
slightly like different.
Hmm.
Um, so again, it's like, oh, Zan has some processing like
Some
issues.
sometimes ADHDers have like delayed auditory processing. So if you've ever talked to an ADHDer and they go, "What?" And then before you can repeat yourself, they answer the question. It's like they actually heard you, but yeah.
You're processing at
Hmm.
different speeds. And sometimes it's like it's not, it's just different. It could be more. It's actually that you're processing in more
And so it takes
of a
longer.
delay. Yeah.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
like your computer when it's trying to buffer a video versus a song. It's different.
Hmm.
My ex so many times has like said something to me, and then like 3 minutes later, I'll respond, and she's like, "What? What? Why are you telling me that now? I asked you that like minutes ago." It's just that's hilarious. That's so funny.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just such a, again, like self-diagnosed. I haven't been like officially tested or things, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I have been officially diagnosed, and talking about elementary school, for me, I was in the era of kids and probably like pretty close to like when people were really starting to diagnose kids, because I feel like there was quite a few, but it was only boys. Oh no, my light just died. Sorry, guys. Um, so looking back, I'm like, now that I know what I know and we know how it presents in women and girls, it was like, holy shit. Like it could not have been more clear that I had ADHD, but ADHD is what the boys have. Only boys have ADHD, and it was, I can even remember the names. The kids that were like, boys were dancing on their desk and like doing all this stuff, right? And I was over there just like suffering, and I had no idea. But my diagnosis came about because of TikTok, which has been part of what I've been trying to share when people were like, oh, you're all just like whining and crying because TikTok's gone. I'm like, TikTok has done a lot for people. And I was just scrolling after I had my baby, and it was 2020, and I was in a state like with no family, by myself, and I just started, I don't know, thank God the algorithm for some reason brought this stuff to me, but I started watching those videos and I'm like, that's me, that's me, that's me. But I still wasn't sure what was going on, and I also did not realize that I had postpartum depression very, very bad. And so I went to my practitioner and we started to like handle that. And so I went on a slew of medications that didn't really help. And so one day I was at a check-in and I was like, I mean, this other stuff, this other medication is helping, but I felt so silly too, right? Because it was still early TikTok. I was like, so I saw this thing on TikTok, I'm like, oh gosh, this doctor's going to think I'm crazy. And she was like, oh, okay. And we went through the diagnostic tool right there. And it was just like, check, check. I mean, I remember, I feel like it was every single one I checked off. And that was such a moment of like, oh my God, I can be a person, because I didn't realize I had been masking for so long. And then for me, it has intertwined and resulted in and contributed to anxiety and depression. And so it's a big mass of things for me. And early on, I did choose to go on Adderall because I was this new lonely like mom, and I just needed to feel better. And that's like Bill said earlier about something else. That's a whole nother story. But it became so real for me, like when the Adderall kicked in, and I remember thinking like, this is what other people get. Like, this is so unfair. Like, I was so sad for myself and for everyone who goes through this, that it was just like, no wonder I struggle so much. Like, if this is what everybody else gets to experience every day, it was just so significant to me to be able to see the differences of what my brain looks like functioning typically, and then when it's on its own.
I appreciated too, like the difference between boys and girls with it.
Yeah.
And that it was studied only the boy. I mean,
Right.
like most medical things, right? It was only studied in the boys. Or
Yeah.
like Bill said, in school, it was just the boys. And that
Yeah.
was my image of ADHD, was like the kids that were like running around the classroom.
Right. Yeah.
And little did I know, like I'm running around in my mind and
Right.
it's playing out. The symptoms are just playing out so differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the inherent anxiety and depression that you start to feel with your like, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Why can't I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why? And you live in this state of confusion that's obviously going to lead to anxiety and depression.
Right. And just being out of your body for so many years, and all the things that come with that as well. So.
And dysregulated, right?
Mm-hmm.
I look
Yep.
at the DSM that I like live and work in as a professional counselor now,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, let's see what this person's life looks like when they're like regulated
Right.
like 70-80% of the time instead of dysregulated 70 or 80% of the time.
Right.
Gee.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have a couple of people in the chat with us right now, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And Kelly just said, as a veteran, they still only test women under male criteria.
Mm.
It's crazy. I wrote a blog post called I have ADHD Now What? The 5 Stages of Grief Through an Adult
Mm-hmm.
ADHD Diagnosis. To just like talk about some of the things you guys were just discussing, because there's most people that I've talked to that have been diagnosed, especially later in life, have this like sense of relief, like, oh my gosh, now I know what's wrong with me. But then there's also this like grief that happens. Well, whether you're diagnosed or self-diagnosed, it's the same. But it's like, oh my gosh, like grief about like what could I have done if I known earlier, or even if I did know earlier, now I'm starting to understand it now. I'm like, oh, if I would have known this about it then, like, and then yeah. So the stages of grief related to ADHD, could find it on my website. I'll tag it below. But
Yeah, please do.
yeah. And then we had a question about how does someone go about getting tested and diagnosed with ADHD? And I know only one of you have actually done it, but you might know more about the process, if you guys want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll share, and then I'd love to hear Bill's experience, because I don't know if it was just a fluke of being in 2020 or what my experience was. So for me, I went through my PCP, my primary care, and she did the diagnostic tool there in the office with me. So it was covered, through my in-office fees. So I don't know if that's different, like a state difference for you, Bill, or if it was a different type of provider, like if you went to a psychiatrist, if it's a whole different diagnostic tool. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So the price I was quoted was through a psychiatrist.
Mm,
I didn't look too much farther into it after that. That was kind of my first toe in the water. And after seeing the price, I was just like, whatever. Maybe there was a cheaper way, possibly, but
yeah,
I kind of gave up, especially because, like I said, my therapist kind of confirmed it for me. And like,
yeah,
I don't know. It would be nice, I will say, to be diagnosed solely to get medication.
hmm,
There are definitely times where, especially like lately this past week, where I really could have used something to to help me like focus and get things done. Because it's, man, even if you just use it like because I've used it before, like a couple times just to try it to see,
yeah,
and I agree with you, Dan. It's like just so much clarity of like, oh, this is it. This is how people function.
yeah.
And so,
I think
yeah.
too, are there like different tiers of tests as well? Like I
Mm,
think
maybe.
even on my company's website, you can take a ADHD questionnaire. It's like 23 questions, two different sections. And we can't like as counselors say you actually have ADHD. We have to refer to like the primary care physician. But I believe there are just different tiers of testing that you do. So the psychiatrist is like the $1,500.
That would make sense. Yeah,
Yeah. So I do know that kind of
yeah.
and what it takes to get a prescriber or a nurse practitioner maybe or nurse.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but now I've heard that they're being even more scrupulous about giving people the meds and they're treating it like an opioid,
Yeah, yeah.
like drug seeking behavior. And I'm going,
Hmm.
no, no, it's just unfortunate. So I'm hearing from just other counselors I work with and such that they're being a little more, and people can't get a hold of the medicine
Yeah,
here in Portland. They're like, we're out.
yeah. That's been my experience. Well, not my personal experience, but hearing from my friends who are still on medication. I went off medication a while ago for many reasons, but one of them was access. And after my divorce a couple of years ago, I lost my health insurance, and so that was just a huge issue to begin with because for me, I had to see my provider, I think, every 3 months. And so that just isn't a thing that you can do when you don't have health insurance. And I remember like having to go to multiple different pharmacies every single month to try to find it. And now even more, I'm hearing that they just don't even have it. For me, it was trying to find the right one that I was on, and now I'm just hearing that it's just out completely. So it is pretty frustrating. Like I get it. It is, I get it. It's a powerful drug, but it's just like we have suffered enough. Like there has got to be an easier way to do this or better medication, something.
Or low level, like antidepressants sometimes can be enough. Like
Yeah,
it's not necessarily a stimulant that you take. You
right.
can also.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Have you guys,
go ahead, Bill.
oh, I was just gonna say, have you guys tried like non-stimulant, like was I think Vyvanse or anything like that before?
I haven't. I used Wellbutrin and Lexapro, so kind of targeting more the
Hmm.
depression. And my experience sounds similar to a lot of people that I've talked to, where it's like at first it's like, oh, this is great, and then it pretty quickly wore off. But nothing would ever get me that like, oh, I'm a real person. My brain is functioning. I can stay present and focus and listen and perform like Adderall does.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because from what I've heard, you have to take it for like months before you actually see results. Like it's not like you just take it and you're good. So yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
interesting, which is also another tough thing for people with ADHD because it's like eventually you're gonna forget,
right.
or just like this isn't working and just stop doing it. So it's hard to really like track it that long term.
My experience, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty, I don't know if you'd say sensitive or maybe responsive to medication. Like I feel like pretty quickly will feel the effects. So for me, I don't remember it taking that long at all for me to really notice. Maybe a couple of days or a week, I was like, oh, it was like my brain was back. But what was interesting for me is that I started to really fight taking it. It was almost like there was this like little gremlin on my shoulder every morning. It was like, you don't really need that. You're fine. It'll be fine. And that was really interesting because it's like, but you feel really good. So it's almost like my brain was don't do it.
Do you think that was like your intuition, or do you think it was just like, because so for me with therapy for the longest time, I would only seek a therapist when I was like really down.
Yeah.
And like unless I was down, if I was happy, I was like, oh, I don't need a therapist. I'm happy, I'm fine. And then the
Hmm.
down part would strike, and then I'd be like, okay, I do need one. And then by the time I go look for one, I'd be over it or something.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if maybe it's like something like that, or I'm just curious.
I think a little bit of that because I also do that with therapy and other things as well. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's an ADHD thing where I just feel like I can like get by and I just don't need support until I'm like so far in the pit that it's going to take all of the support to get me out.
Mm.
But I also really had a lot of fear about the long-term effects of it was Adderall that I was on. So I think that played into it as well, is that I was almost afraid to get addicted or used to feeling so good because I wasn't completely settled with the idea of being on it long term. And I
Mm.
think that played into part of it as well. It's like, don't get too good, like too used to the good life because we're not sure if we're going to be able to or want to be on this long term.
Hmm.
Or
I
like you said, afford to. I mean, have the insurance.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think what you were just talking about, Jessy, is a combination of a few things. Like there's this out of sight, out of mind thing for ADHDers that happens. And some of that I think is also connected to time blindness.
Mm,
Um, so you put those two together, and so then it's like, oh, it's not a thing that needs to be addressed because it's not in your face,
yeah.
which is why ADHDers will forget to like eat because it's like
Mhm.
I'm not starving, so I don't need to eat. And then all of a sudden you're starving or super exhausted, and then you're like, wait, oh, I haven't eaten in 36 hours. No wonder I need to put some fuel in my body. And so I think it's the same way with the medication or seeing a therapist or any other thing, or even like your friends, like forgetting to respond to them and be like, oh, I haven't really connected to anyone because I've been stuck in my house for 5 days. Maybe I should go through my texts and text my friends back. It's just like out of sight, out of mind. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist.
That makes sense because it's like when you are on medication, then the symptoms have disappeared or really, really reduced. And so it's, well, I don't need it because I still feel good. And it's like, no, you still have to take it to continue feeling good.
because you're functioning at a higher.
Right. We're functioning. We're fine.
Oh, we're fine. We're good. It was like,
Yeah.
not if we don't. Yeah.
One of the questions in the chat was any holistic remedies. Is there anything that has been supportive for you that's not medicine?
I would love to answer that. Routines, eating a certain way. I realized I think a lot of my issues I recently found out like birth father, and I got to meet like my like biological like half sister and stuff, and I found out like this whole other side of me that I was unaware of was like diabetes galore. And I'm like, so for me it's like routines. I don't eat sugar and flour anymore. It's like certain things like that, the balancing thing, talking about yoga and like exercise, like cleaning my space regularly. I know it sounds
That's a
simplistic,
real one. No,
right?
that's a real one.
Simplistic, but it's just like I just like okay, 10-minute like cleanup and like just kind of like making sure that like there isn't like physical chaos around me. I eat a certain way. I'm kind of I feel almost like boring. But like my symptoms get reduced so much. My symptoms are reduced so much when I do this. And just like noticing like we talked about earlier on the thing, like what we're taking in, like not too much scrolling, what I'm taking in, friendship wise, who's in my life, it makes a difference.
Mm.
Yeah.
Such a difference. And that again, plugging like I am a therapist that you guys are talking about who you like avoid or you think you need and then you don't. It's like yeah, getting into these like basic routines, like treating yourself. I think of it like how I would treat a child, or like if um my fur baby, like if I knew they were sick or they weren't doing well, like I would go to the doctor. And it's just like thinking about like treating myself like I'm parenting myself. Like, no, that's not enough for
Mm,
you need to eat more protein. What's your serving of fruit for lunch? Like it sounds so basic, but it's like that's like my holistic like remedy for working with the way I work.
Mhm.
I'm so sensitive. And I think that's another ADHD spectrum neurodivergent thing, is that we are so sensitive. We have sensitive bodies. I get hives if I get like stressed out. My body like tells me before my mind even like registers it. And I'm like, abort, like you have to leave the situation. I don't know where you're at. So I don't know if that was a roundabout my holistic care, but
That's awesome.
routine.
no, yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, it's sleep, food, exercise, like so fundamental. But like, I find that if I don't get enough sleep, or if I'm not eating enough, especially if I'm not eating enough, which is common for me because I'm really, really sensitive emotionally, and my gut is so attached to my emotions. And so if I'm like really sad or really anxious or something, food becomes not appetizing to me whatsoever. Like I completely lose my appetite. And then that cascades into, not having energy and not being able to like, because I feel like normally we have this like certain well of willpower where it's like we can just power through and get something done and force ourselves to do it even if we don't feel like it. But when you're not eating or not sleeping enough or not moving enough, it's like that level of willpower just there's non-existent. And so trying to force yourself to do this thing you don't want to do when you're not taking care of your body it feels impossible. And so yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd second and third all of those, with an extra emphasis on the clutter. That was a whole thing I did last year. I worked with
Mm,
a coach to actually declutter my entire house. That was life changing. That was one of those things that I didn't realize. And looking back, I've been such a pack rat tendency, even as like a kid. And so just seeing how that helped. And then also I would add, chiropractic care has been massive for me. I actually work with with a chiropractor. And so I have access to routine chiropractic care, which has been so amazing. I'm so thankful for her. And then she also really opened my eyes to the world of like whole food supplements. And so over the last couple of years, I've really infused and been trying to curate different things that work. I haven't found like something that's perfect, but I have found that vitamin B, the B's are a huge thing that makes a massive difference. There's a couple of things I really like standard process. So they've got some one that's called Mintran, that really helps me. And basically, it's just getting minerals. So, any way that you can get back in minerals and electrolytes, those have been two things that have really made a difference.
Oh, such a great topic too.
Yeah.
I am on that bandwagon, like magnesium,
Yeah.
That's what I was
morning,
gonna say.
night, Epsom salt baths,
Yes.
ashwagandha.
Yeah.
Like, I also,
Yes.
yes, I mean, it matters, people. It
Yeah.
matters.
and putting it somewhere where you're going to see it every day.
Right. Like
that's
actually,
that's
yeah.
why this is literally
With
right here, because I can't
breakfast.
sit down to work with being like, oh yeah, I got to take one of those.
I
Yeah,
keep mine on top of my coffee pot. Like I have a coffee maker that has a flat top. And so like my stuff goes on top of the coffee pot.
I just link it with my breakfast. I'm like, that's my
Yeah.
pot of supplements. I'm taking it with my breakfast. Like, it's
Yeah.
just not, yeah, it just has to. Yeah.
Hmm.
But again, this takes money. I'm not
Right.
going to eat. Like, it's like prioritizing.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
Because
Prioritize,
if you're going to take it, you want it to be quality. And if you want quality, you're going to pay for it. So,
but it
yeah.
can do
I would
wonders.
say sorry. I would say focus on the free stuff first. Try and
Yeah.
get your sleep right, try and move, exercise, get outside, take your
Protein.
shoes off, stick your toes in the grass, like,
Yeah.
just do the basic stuff first and then move on from there if that's not
Yeah.
helping.
Yeah. So you can actually get a sense of like what you actually need, like if you're actually depleted in things or if you're just not letting your body function.
Or it's
Yeah.
probably a combo of both. And
Right.
like, seeing your doctor regularly.
Yeah.
That's just another, you can't avoid that.
Yeah.
You like blood testing and making sure your vitamin D and your vitamin B and
Hmm.
these things are like running full speed, because otherwise you're just blaming yourself when it's like a physical need.
Yeah. Yep.
And for those of you who are watching right now or are going to watch the replay, do not try to do all of these things at the same time. Pick one, pick two, habit stack. Like, and if you don't know what habit stacking is, it's what they were just referring to. So Zan talked about taking her vitamins with her breakfast. So it's like that's how she makes sure she does it every day. And Bill has it on his desk. He's like, oh yeah, I sat down to do work. This is in front of my face. I should take my vitamins. So it's like pairing it with something that you're already doing is what habit stacking is. So take one or two of the things that we talked about and then come back to the video and figure out what other ones you want to do. But please don't try to do them all at the same time. I find that a lot of ADHDers tend to like, okay, either I'm gonna do all of the things and then you get burnt out after like 2 days or 2 hours, or there's like this not just doing all of the things, but this like trying it and then it doesn't work and then throwing it out the window instead of just tweaking it, right? Like sometimes it's not about, oh, the vitamins aren't working. It's like, oh no, actually I'm just not remembering to take them every day. So where can I put them? Or maybe it's not, it's like instead of throwing the whole thing out, it's like a puzzle piece that you just need to turn this way, and now all of a sudden it works. And so in my coaching world, we talk about test, tweak, polish. So you test it out, it's not really working. Like, is the whole thing not working, or is it just a part of it? And then you just tweak it and polish. And part of learning to know the difference between when it's a pivot versus when it's a moving on is learning to trust yourself. And that's like a lot of what I do in coaching is just helping people learn how to trust themselves again, especially with ADHD. Like you are taught, like in our society, we're taught anyways not to trust ourselves. But when you have ADHD, it's that much more because you don't fit in the little box that everyone else fits in. And so you're told that you're constantly late and that's the horrible thing. It makes you a bad person and blah, 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 all this other extra shit that's not actually true. So then you've been taught and conditioned not to trust your own judgment around the things that you need for yourself. And so getting back in tune with that can be really helpful in learning when it's time to pivot and when it's time to keep going. Because sometimes it's just like, no, I don't want to do this, but I need to keep going. Or when it's
Yeah.
time to throw it out the window and try something new. Yeah. Okay, tell me about who you are. We have these beautiful humans telling us awesome things. Tell us who you are and what you do.
So,
Zan, you haven't started
hi.
first.
Oh yeah, Zan, you go, Zan.
Okay, woo. I do a variety of things, but I guess my most official role right now is a professional mental health counselor in the state of Oregon. And specifically, I do something called restoration therapy, which is kind of a cool combo of like CBT. So, like, we look at behavior and attachment and nervous system regulation. And I really like it because it's very active. And I feel like I'm, you know, usually people come to counseling and it's like they kind of like unloading their problems. And that, yes, there's part of that like validation, but also like, okay, how are we really going to affect change? How do we work with like where you're at? And I don't know, I'm just a big advocate for like growing self-compassion and like love and self-acceptance. And my path to getting here was unique, I guess. um, Became a certified yoga teacher in 2018, and most of my life I've identified as an actress and physical theater, nonverbal theater world. So I felt like I've always studied human nature and been super fascinated on people and behavior and emotions and subtlety. Um, so yeah. And then I'm working with Jess. She's been working with me really recently. I'm pitching a local community radio show that I'm really excited about. Um, bridging just lots of my passions, hopefully. And yeah, just giving space for people to hear like professionals that think differently and are quirky and don't fit in the box, like Jess said.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting. This is so fun.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go. Also, I wanted to mention, so on the terms of saying, well, pick one thing to change. From my personal recommendation, if you pick one thing, I would say do exercise, or I should say not exercise, but movement. And that could be like going for a walk, going for a bike ride, playing pickleball, like yoga, like whatever you find fun. I would say find something really, really fun and go with that. And don't be afraid of like switching it up. Like go for a hike one day and then go to try a Muay Thai class or something, like just find different things you can do to keep your body moving that you enjoy. And that's the best way to stick to it. And it makes the most difference in my experience. So yeah, with that being said, hello, I'm Bill Widmer, and I coach ADHD entrepreneurs. Specifically, I really enjoy working with people who are spiritual in some way. And what I mean by that is I'm a big believer that we are all kind of the same cloth, essentially. And a lot of the work that I do is around uh, kind of dealing with like the internal struggles of like limiting beliefs and feeling of like guilt and shame. And like, yes, I work specifically with entrepreneurs and I want to help them make money and make grow their business and everything. But I also find that too many coaches that I've seen are so focused on the money and kind of detriment of the rest of people's lives. Like it's so like hustle, grind, get things done. And I'm more like, yeah, let's hustle, but also like let's make sure your relationships are good. Let's make sure you're eating and sleeping well and exercising and taking care of yourself. And it's like not all of these other things aren't falling off. And so I'm kind of more of like a holistic empowerment coach, I guess you could say.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I actually find this really interesting because I know, and Jessy's going to share a little bit about what she does too. All of us are actually pretty spiritual and woo-woo, and I was like, wow, we're talking a lot about science today. This is so interesting. But it's all connected, and I love it.
Yeah,
All right,
well, I
Jess.
think sorry, I was just gonna say, I think the spiritual and the science are really like
Oh yeah, totally. They
tied together so
so
closely.
connected. So connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm an emotion code practitioner, and so I really focus on women over age 30 who are typically what I see, they're just kind of in this emotional meltdown chaos where they've just kind of hit a wall, whether they're transitioning into a different phase of life, like going into motherhood or going to empty nesters, or I work with a lot of divorce, those types of things where there's just something they've hit a wall where they just can't do it anymore, whether they've been masking or just suppressing and shoving things down for so long. And they're just stuck, and nothing else that they've done or have used before is working anymore. And so I work with them to help take all that emotional chaos and actually identify what it is and let it go, so it opens up all these areas of life for them. And what's really cool, I don't specifically target women with ADHD, but I do see it a ton, whether it's just because our energies are matching or there's a lot of studies that actually say ADHD is the mental health disorder tied most closely with emotional dysregulation, which surprised me because I would instantly think of something like bipolar or something else. But it really makes sense. And I have a history or a background in psychology and social services. I thought that I was going to be a counselor, and I thought I was going to work with children, all of these different things. But for me, I just couldn't handle what I felt was like this Band-Aid thing. And even in my own life, I was trying to get back to the root because all of these things weren't working for me. And Gabor Mate, I don't know if you guys have heard of him or study with him, but his framework of ADHD is really a trauma response. And that makes so much sense to me. And as I was graduating college, Bessel van der Kolk came out with The Body Keeps the Score. And I remember reading that in my final semester and saying, oh my God, what have we done? Like, we're doing everything wrong, but now I have this degree and I'm like 3 credits away. What am I going to do? And so it's been kind of a winding road, but emotion code is the thing that was the missing key for me. I still see my therapist and I do all the things, but understanding what this overwhelming sensation was that kept happening to me that would just shut me down or put me in freeze mode or fight mode or whatever it was, and understanding that my body was just filled with all this old stuff that had to be processed, and understanding to actually use my emotions as information to navigate my life versus shoving them down has transformed every area of my life. And so I started using it for myself after I discovered it, and then found out that I could become a practitioner and help other people do it. And it was just that kind of instinctual, like, there's your thing. Like, finally, like, there's the thing. So that's what I help with.
Um, so I've gotten to experience Jessy doing emotion code. It's really, really cool. Um, please feel free to tell me no, but would you be open to doing a mini demonstration on me right now so people could see what it is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something
Yeah.
that's very different.
Yeah. So I don't remember if we did something specific or general. I feel like it was general with you, but with emotion code, you could say, hey, I keep like biting my partner's head off every time they breathe. I don't know why I'm doing this. Or it can just be like, I've got some trauma. I don't really know what it is. I just want to explore it. So where do you kind of fall, Jess? What works for you tonight?
I mean, I have a headache right now, and figuring out why that's the case, that would be awesome. Is
Okay.
that something we can do?
Yeah, so I use muscle testing. So this, again, we're just like condensing everything down here. But in 2020, applied kinesiology, where you're muscle testing on people's body, we couldn't touch people anymore. And so practitioners started to play around with the idea and practice and see, like, can we actually utilize energy and human connection so that we can like basically be surrogates for someone else's body. And so that's what you'll see me doing, and that's what I'm going to be doing now. I have Jess's permission, and so I already know that I can muscle test for her. So we're going to ask, for this headache, I would probably first ask, like, is it something physical or is it more energetic emotional? So it is energetic emotional. And then I utilize the emotion code chart, which anyone can get for free. Just Google it and you can see. But basically what we want to know from your body is what specific emotion it is. And so I'm going to quickly go through this saying, is it A, B, A, even, odd, 1, 3, 3, 1, 3, 2. So a part of this, or maybe all of this, is coming from the energy of discouragement. So is this something that you've personally felt? Yes. Is this more current or in the past, something more current? Do you need a specific age, or did anything pop to mind when I said discouragement?
Nothing popped into my head. I'm surprised by this. I want to know more.
Okay. Can you remind me how old you are now?
I'm 36.
Okay, so let's see. Is it 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30? So around age 27 is what it's coming up. So around age 27, something connected to discouragement. Does anyone or anything
What
come to mind?
year was that? I have to do some math. 1927. Oh yeah, 2015. That was one of the hardest years of my life. Um, I was married at that point. I was in full-time ministry, but not knowing what I wanted to do. Marriage was weird. Um, I was depressed, and I ended up getting on some antidepressants at the time. There was a lot of discouragement in my life in that time of my life.
Yeah. So generally in a session, I would want to take some time to explore if you think that there's anything happening present day that's maybe bringing some of that up subconsciously, or maybe even some things consciously that are making you go back to that time, or that your body's thinking like, oh shit, this is happening again.
Yeah. I honestly, when I asked you to do this demonstration, I was 100% thought this was going to be a physical thing and it was going to be really fast. So we might have to do more of this offline so we don't take up all the rest of the time. But
Yeah.
thank you. That's
Yeah.
really enlightening to me just to even think about, like, oh shit, discouragement from when I was 27 is why my head hurts right now.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. So for those that are watching, what this would look like going forward is that we would spend some time unpacking that to whatever extent that she needs to. And I'm always very clear, I am not a licensed therapist, and I love co-managing with therapy to do this. But you always have space to share as little or as much as you want to in the space with me. And so we would unpack that and talk as much as we need to. And then we would also do the releasing of that emotion before we moved on, so that you would actually complete that. And the best way that it makes sense to me is, we talked about computers earlier, and it's like we have all these open tabs in our history of times that we went through trauma that we didn't have the support or the resources to release. And basically your stress cycle gets cut off. And so your body, your nervous system still running on this mode that this is happening. So this discouragement still feels present to your body, even though you might not be clocking it. And so by bringing that to consciousness and validating that feeling and make the connection that your body needs you to make, that data it's trying to give you, is what actually helps you really let go of that, so that that's how we're balancing the nervous system and actually helping you see results in reduction of symptoms and helping you unlock the blocks that you are feeling because of it.
Yeah, so cool. Thank you.
Sounds
for asking.
so intuitive too, right? That I just was, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I love
amazing.
Spiritual.
that everyone can do this. And I think it's a tool that everyone should learn to do. There's obviously a space to work with practitioners, but like I said, I did it on my own when I found it. And I always try to emphasize that, like, you can do this on your own, and this can be so helpful, even if you're not doing it right. When you start just asking yourself and just letting yourself listen, you're going to get a lot of answers.
Thank you.
How do you book a session with you?
You can just reach out to me. There's a link in my bio where we do like a quick 15-minute phone call to make sure that it's a good fit. And then we move forward from there.
Yeah, I'll make sure I put the links for all 3 of these beautiful humans below after we're done.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm Jess DuBose.
Yeah, who are you?
I'm an ADHD coach, and I have many different offerings. I'm actually working on a really big offer right now to work with ADHD entrepreneurs, and like in totality, like Bill was talking about, where we do like ADHD coaching and business coaching and like hand holding. Like sometimes ADHDers just need somebody to hold them through whatever thing they've been avoiding. So it's a little like body doubling, but it's not like co-working. It's like I'm actually sitting there doing it with you and helping you not get distracted from the thing that you would normally get distracted by, or because your brain wants to pull you out because it's boring. So I just help like lovingly bring you back. And so that you don't have to do it by yourself, because sometimes doing shit by yourself sucks. And you don't have to like second guess yourself. Anyways, I'm putting that together. It's almost done. I'll be sending that out. But the thing that I want to share with everyone is I have a community called Magic, Magnificent ADHDers Growing in Community. And it's a platform online. So it's like a little social media space where you can connect with other ADHDers. And then we have a group coaching session once a month. It's $10 a month. So I'd love to have you in there. My goal is to have at least 100 in the by the end of the year, active members, and I would love to see you there.
Yeah.
And if $10 a month is too much, like just let me know. I have some coupon codes. We can figure some shit out. Oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation.
Yeah.
Bill, Dan, and Jessy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us and inviting us. I'm really grateful that we got connected through TikTok. I'm really happy to know that you exist and get to be part of your corner of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really happy to know all of you exist.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like attracts like, right?
Yeah.
Find each other.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you were
Yeah.
going to leave everyone with one piece of it, like short piece of advice of something that changed your life, that supports you like so much with ADHD, what would that be?
Radical self-acceptance.
Yes.
I'm biased, but hire a coach.
Yeah.
That was huge for me.
Yeah.
Really.
I've had so many coaches in the last few years. I would always advocate for that. I think for me, being able to talk through it, just like without any shame or guilt, just really talking through it, especially in the ways that it right now impacts me as a mom and as a partner. There's so many things, like daily things, and sometimes I even get tired of hearing myself being like, well, my ADHD, but it's part of the process. Like really just raising that awareness of like, here's why I can't have a conversation about you very simply trying to ask me to do something because I hear it like rejection, or knowing like I need to teach my son, even though he's 4, there's gonna be times where you can't touch me. And then that's gonna become a conversation about body autonomy and just making it okay for me to meet my needs instead of just continuing to try to mask and shove it down because that's how I was raised. So I would say just feel free to be aware and to share what you need. Don't feel like you have to keep trying to shove yourself into the box that we don't fit in.
And also exercise, movement.
Yes, honestly, I wanted to say that, but I was like, we said it so
That's
many
like
times. But yes,
number one.
exercise for real.
Move your body.
Move your body.
Fun. Move your body.
Yeah.
Have fun with it, even if it's like
Yeah.
a dance party in your own room, right?
Yeah.
To be a fancy gym membership or it's so cold I can't get outside. It's just like have fun, do the dishes, put on your favorite.
Jump on the bed.
Yes.
Have a
Yeah.
pillow fight.
Do a stretch, like anything.
Yes.
Get an animal. I'm such a
Yeah.
great friend, someone you go pet and
Yeah.
regulate with.
And the other thing I would add is pay attention to the people you have around you. If you don't feel loved and accepted in within the closest people of your life, then I would urge you to find people who love and accept you as you are, because that makes a huge, having that level of support in your life will make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here. Those of you watching, thank you for watching another episode of the